Hi everybody, welcome to today's video lecture. We're going to look at assessment and technology in the 21st century classroom. So the main three objectives for this video lecture, we're going to define the types of assessment, then we'll move on and look at and summarize technology as an assessment tool, what that looks like in the modern classroom and how that's been changing over time. And then lastly, we will distinguish between different technology assessment tool options. So starting off, we're going to look at types of assessment. Now we look at, first of all, at the future of assessment and where it is going. So there is this shift, just like there is in all aspects of education, a shift from this traditional paper and pencil based assessment and type of learning that have been going on for a long time. And now we're moving into the new digital age with more flexibility, responsiveness, and contextualization to really help our students demonstrate learning in a variety of ways. And it's not a one-size-fits-all model for assessment. So we look at, for instance, timing. Traditional assessment, this happens at the end of learning, and you get the student finds out at the very end if they did well or not. Whereas in next generation, this digital assessments, it allows us to implement different benchmarks along the way, embedded right in the learning via technology that gives us instant knowledge where our students are in feedback. The accessibility, if it's universally designed correct, students can find their assessments in a variety of ways. It's not limited to just going and finding that specific ability or one specific way of finding out how to get the information. Now it's universally designed. They have a million ways to access assessments along the way. Pathways, it's no longer linear. It's more adaptive. Students can move back and forth related to different assignments and assessments. The feedback can also occur in real time. So if I have a group of students who are doing a Google Slides presentation and they're collaborating as a group, and I am on the rights list in terms of I can go in and edit and view their presentation as it's being made. I can go in and give them real-time feedback. Or at the end of class, I have students drop me an exit slip with information about what they learned or didn't learn. I can make real-time changes between one class period to the next about what maybe students were missing or questions that began to pop up I noticed consistently amongst the class. And now all of a sudden, I'm able to really adjust on the fly. And lastly, instead of these kind of generic fill in the blank, the Scantron type assessments, now we can really personalize and really modify our rubrics to match very specific needs as time progresses. So types of assessment, just a real quick summary here, is between formative and summative assessments. Now, formative are more frequent. This can be as simple as a thumbs up, thumbs down as you go across the class. This, again, can be something like exit slips. And this tends to be built right in along with the instruction to give you, as the instructor, multiple postmarks or benchmarks, I should say, along the way to kind of check in with your students, but also for the students as well to make note of their own progress. For the teacher, it's just a snapshot, a brief moment in time where things are going, basically to allow you to see where they are, but also what adjustments and tweaks you can make going forward. And it really does help that teacher-student, especially when you are able to have the students collaborate and interact with the formative assessments, and then you actually show them how you're utilizing those assessments in the classroom to make the learning experience better. That really adds credibility to your assessment, and it makes things a lot better for both teacher and student. For summative, these are the things that we think about in terms of exams, SATs, unit tests, quizzes. This is measuring knowledge at one specific time. Usually this specific point in time has been determined beforehand. So this goes to large numbers of groups. This could be an entire class in terms of an entire class at once, or maybe an entire grade level at once, or even when we look at things like SATs, this is like a whole country at once. So we have to figure out now, when we look at, for instance, state testing and standards, we have to figure out in these summative tests, what are our students going to do to meet these standards? How are we going to do that? Because there's hard numbers that determine what does and what does not qualify as meeting a standard. So that's the summative assessment there. It's more higher stakes, whereas formative is more low stakes. And fair or unfair, a lot of times this summative assessment is what is utilized by schools or school districts or state boards of education to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of your teaching in terms of the classroom, but also the curriculum itself. The second learning objective is summarize technology as an assessment tool. So why use formative assessments and why use assessments from technology. Okay, number one, helps you to understand student thinking, what's going on both in real time and post time, because when we talk about technology, this can definitely be used to give quizzes and tests, especially if you're trying to get rid of going to the copy room all the time, making copies, using all that paper. You can definitely utilize technology for those types of assessments. Get and give feedback. So for instance, if you are again, going to the exit slip, maybe you ask students something that they learned and you can get from that. Maybe you do a teacher evaluation at the end of the quarter and the students give you feedback. One of the questions you have on there is, give me some suggestions to make my teaching better or more interactive, things of that nature. So you can get and give that feedback, and students are going to give you that real-time feedback. Maybe you incorporate a Likert scale into your exit slip and you ask students to rate the lesson in terms of clarity and content, things of that nature. And that way you're getting that real-time feedback from your students before, during, and after lessons. Helps you again to kind of revisit expectations, provide those benchmarks and checkpoints for students along the way to make sure that they are matching or meeting the goals that are required. Provides definite direction for learning and instruction. You can give your students feedback, but yes, also in terms of where do we go next. So you can change things between one class to the other, year to year, or maybe you kind of switch gears in the middle of an assignment and maybe you change what the final project would be and maybe you switch it to a different type of demonstration, for instance. And then lastly, reporting all grades. This is good, for instance, also keeping track of behavior and monitoring student behavior can also be utilized in formative assessments as well. And you can also incorporate media, like videos and things, into assessments. So enhanced question types, no longer is it just simply, when we looked at, for instance, the paper and pencil type, the multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, or matching, for instance, short answer, whatever that is. So we really limited in terms of ways for students to demonstrate mastery in terms of content, because there's not a lot of ways to ask the questions, quite frankly. And now, but we look at this new technology and this new age in terms of digital assessments, it really allows for students to do different items. We have, for instance, we're teaching students the value of money, and we can have them go up and move around coins. Maybe we have JPEGs of coins and they have to arrange it to equal 52 cents, or they have to put it in order from smallest to large, or things of that nature. That really, on a smart board, that's really a great way of assessment to do that. Hot text, same thing with, for instance, words or phrases or sentences. The sentences are jumbled and the students have to organize them up on the smart board or using some other form of technology. So it really does a nice job of also including an ability to utilize performance-based assessment. Also, for increased accessibility for students and educators, you can include resources right into your assessments. Make students go outside and watch a video perhaps, or they have to analyze a series of maps. So now all of a sudden you can have resources that maybe you didn't before, or you would have had to print out a bunch of times, and now you can send them to a JPEG of a primary source, for instance, that they have to go ahead and read and analyze. Looking at the different ways of technology now, because of this type of assessment, students can work and do it individually at their own time. So that frees you up as the teacher to walk around, really kind of monitor things, what's going on, and it saves you a ton of time, again, from, for instance, if you're doing quizzes or tests, from having to go to the copy room, make all the copies, staple them all together. Maybe your school doesn't have, like mine, didn't have a stapler capability on it, so you had to literally staple them all together and print on both sides, and all that time and that walking back and forth. Well, now all of a sudden your prep time just got cut in half, because now you have the ability to have your tests or quizzes on things like Google Forms or Socrative, and you can shuffle the answer options and shuffle the questions. So it's really, really nice, and you can make copies of the test, so you can switch them around and have different versions of the same test and just modify it. So it's really, really nice. And then this provides also support for students with disabilities. So if you're giving assessment, for instance, online, they can get a text-to-speech option that you can download. It's a Google add-on that you can put into your browser that can read the students the test. So it's really, really nice. It wouldn't be possible on a print-based assessment. And lastly here, we're just going to take a quick glimpse and distinguish between technology assessment tool options. So you're going to see here on the next slide, these are a whole bunch. This is just some of the assessment technology tools that are out there. So I'm just going to briefly touch on each one. PlayPosit is a fantastic resource where you can take videos and implement or embed different questions, maybe almost like a quiz on a video. It's fantastic. Flippity is a great way to increase student interaction. It's really, really fun. Students really seem to enjoy this app a lot. I highly recommend you go on and check that out. Rubistar is a great tool for actually creating rubrics. It's an online database of templates that you can use, or you can create your own based upon specific types of assignments. It can save you a ton of time, and it's easily downloadable. Quizlet, just essentially a collection of quizzes. You can find them online. It's really quite easy. You can find these. It's usually generally free and wide open. Quizzes, same type of concept. Kahoot is a great software for kind of informal, formative assessments. You can make them competition style. You can make them individual. They're really fun. It's got music involved in it, and there's countdowns for the questions, and students really enjoy doing this. It creates a more competitive environment. You can pair them up and have them go together, or you can have them individually do it, but it's a really great, fun way to either begin a lesson or end a lesson. Socrative, this is more of a formal type. You can do a space race, which is another form of competition, but this is kind of a little bit more formal. I like to use this one for exams, for instance. Just be wary on Socrative. You cannot have more than one exam open at a time. Pear Deck, Poll Everywhere. These are both interactive softwares that you can put into, for instance, PowerPoint or Google Slides presentations that will ask the students or your audience to participate, where you put up a question and then students have to utilize a website or their smartphone. And then they go and either answer a question or vote on a poll, for instance. And it's just another way to kind of monitor understanding and engage your students. Flipgrid is a fantastic resource as well. Flipgrid allows you, the teacher, to record videos and have your students engage with each other and with you via recorded video. So it's not a chat. They actually go in, record videos, and engage that way. So it's a really great way of getting students to actually have to articulate and verbalize what it is that they're saying. And lastly, here we have Google Forms. This can be used for formative or summative assessments. It's really, really versatile. You can do things like they have Likert scale questions where you can have students produce opinions about a specific topic, or maybe there's some sort of event going on. You can have it you can turn it into a quiz very easily, where you can shuffle questions and assign different point values to different questions. For instance, you can have students go in and write a long response on a long answer option. That's really nice. You can conduct student surveys and attitude surveys. For me, when I conduct, for instance, my exit slips, I use it on Google Forms. And when I do any teacher evaluations for my students, for me, and also self-evaluations that I have them do at the end of each semester, I use Google Forms. And it's very easy. You just make a copy of whatever it is that you have, and now you have a brand new document. It's really, really versatile. I'll also have students use a lot of these. I'll have students use Google Forms to, for instance, if they're in a group and they make a project, or they're assigned a specific topic to teach the class, I should say, they can go in and make a Google form or a Socrative or a Kahoot. And it really is enjoyable. It really is fun. I highly recommend you go check out Flippity. Flippity is a really fun way of engaging your students. You can have it set up where like a random wheel where you spin the wheel and you have your students' last names entered in, and it just clicks on them randomly. So it's really a lot of fun, a lot of really cool stuff like that. So hopefully you found a way now, as we close this lesson out, to find different ways to utilize and leverage assessment technologies in your classroom. Again, there's a whole bunch of them. So follow these, find these, play around with these. I'm sure some of them you have already. Others, maybe you're not so familiar with. Go check out some YouTube tutorials. I have some tutorials as well on the Ashland EdTech website that you have access to, actually for pretty much a lot of these. Let's see here, at least 3 or 4 of them, 5 of them. So go check that out, and hopefully you find great ways to utilize this and get feedback from your students and keep working and improving your teaching practice.